welcome everyone to another episode of Coffee and Whiteboard. Markers, joined my co-host Jody Eppier.
How are you?
I'm Miles O'Kane. Here we go. Looking forward to the ride. Week 5, halfway through term 3.
Yep.
Reflections for the week. Positives, things to improve on. I'll go first. Positives. I put on chill out music today for my lower school classes. Never do it. I've seen other teachers do it. Came across it on the weekend, like a 4-hour mix. It was epic, man. So you got like chill out music in the background as like every 10, 20 seconds, the background flicks to like another incredible place in the world. So we're going through the Alps, flying through the snow at one point. We're in the Antarctic.
Visuals as well, eh?
Yeah, man. Actually, yeah, so it's just whatever chill out music. I'm sure there's heaps of them out there. Search on YouTube. The kids loved it as well. Like the usual difficult students were at peace. Yeah. Could be onto something here.
I'll get some of the positive. I think it's just going back over the topics that we've been teaching in the class and just making sure that kids who haven't got the concept, I think that was the cool thing was we used today was to reflect on what we've forgotten, what we need to remember, what we need to do again. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the good part was there was a couple of students that, I don't know if it was because they were absent or just didn't understand it the first time through. It's just re-establishing how to do certain processes. I think that was the cool thing of today was just peaceful of going back over and ensuring so those who did know, they knew how to do it and they just continually done it. But those who didn't know, but we also made everyone accountable that if out of 10 questions, one is wrong, then everyone's back at recess and we do 10 questions again. So it was really cool to see those who were really onto it, helping those that weren't as...
The teamwork provided.
Sure, yeah.
That's one thing I've got on my list this week. Was to start implementing more sort of team building activities in the last 10-15 minutes of my lower school classes, and you're the man to go to, so just a heads up that might be coming. Have you watched much of the Olympics this time around?
I've watched a couple, yeah.
What would be your highlight of the Olympics? Number one highlight for you?
Ooh, I think I watched the 1500 and a guy
the track.
Guy that was unknown, sort of came from nowhere.
Yeah, the guy from Netherlands went out hard, didn't he? He's a gutsy roast, and then he got the East Africans took him in the end. Yeah. It's so hard to it's hit and miss that, isn't it?
Especially when you look at it, man. 4 years of training. 4 years of just full dedication to the craft that you want to do.
Yeah.
To work up towards the Olympics to try and get that gold medal.
Well, that was my highlight. So the women's 100 metre, seeing the lady from St. Lucid, I think. Correct me if wrong. She take it out. She dominated as well. I think she may have won the 200. No, she came second in the 200. But like that, there's no false starts in the 100 anymore. So you've trained all your life at whatever 9 to 10 seconds of stage time. It's just incredible sort of how they preempt stuff. And then the guys 200 metres, the favourite didn't win. The American guy, nothing on Americans, but the guy from Botswana took it out, who seemed quite either he's just petrified. You know, they zoom in at the start line. And obviously everyone's nervous, but there's some people that just seem to be holding it better than others. He just looked like staring off into the distance.
Oh, well, the other thing is that as the Olympics have gone on throughout the years, it's neat to see a lot of the countries that you didn't recognise or wouldn't really know. All of a sudden they're on the world stage and are actually doing really well. Mm-hmm. You know, I looked at one of the weightlifting events. I think a Samoan guy got up and got gold medal. He was, and so there's a huge push now in Samoa to get a lot of it because it's weightlifters up into there. So it's one of those things where small countries can actually do really well in particular events, but then you look at the bigger countries that just dominate. Good on them because they can actually send a lot of people who qualify, and that's why they have it. So.
You're right, and more money behind their programs and stuff like that. My question to you, what's an underrated skill teachers can benefit from in teaching? So what's an underrated skill in teaching? Ooh. For me, I think being a good listener is important. I think it's teachers can get on a pedestal at times in the classroom, but actually just understanding where the student's coming from, especially if you see a student dig in. That's what to say. Just like I always balance it, don't go head over heels and give all the power to the student. Yep. But if you have an ongoing difficulty or you see a reaction that's out of the norm, then probably just patiently try to get the information out of the kid by listening to him or the student.
I'll echo that one because that very same thing happened where all the student wanted was just to be heard. And then once the student was heard, then the student saw reason and then was accepting of whatever was about to happen. So I think listening is another one. I think one of the other ones is just poise, just your ability to be under control at all stages. And even if the kid's trying to be difficult for the sake of being difficult, it's giving them the option is always the good thing. And I think that's a cool where you give a child an option or a student an option and they get to choose which one. Now, failure to do so, if they do not choose one, then you obviously say, well, then I'll choose one for you. But at least you're giving them that option. I think that's a skill where some teachers may go straight to, this is what's going to happen. Allow the student to make the decision. It's a lot more powerful. It also saves face for the student. But at the same time, you're also willing to negotiate. It shows the student that you're at least giving them choices to make. So.
Yeah, I had a situation last week with a student from another teacher's class, and I dug in about something and just kept going the why, and then once I explained the why, I kind of like, oh, so it's kind of, but they weren't being over compliant, but they understood and were able to sort of settle down and get some work done. But it's just it might just be me being a new parent and this stuff's coming along, but just be able to explain the reasons so the kids aren't feeling like they're being picked on or. There's favourites in the class or whatever the situation. And teachers get busy, so there's a situation there.
I think that why from the student and answering the why, clarification, no matter which way you look at it, anything to do with clarification is a good thing. Because it allows the student to go, oh, okay, I get you. It allows the staff member to go, this is the reasons why. And then they both come to the same conclusion. Oh, okay, now we understand. Let's move forward.
So look, I mean, I think with teaching there's a lot of skills that go under the radar, but I think those ones they definitely stand out for me. So the last couple of episodes we've had a more tongue-in-cheek approach or a more light human approach. Today we're going to get sort of back on track with the more semi-inspirational. So today's episode we're going to look at the best advice we've received along our teaching journey. So the best advice we've received along our teaching journey. So for me, I think it was my first year teaching. I was down at a graduate PD with other graduate teachers in Perth from all primary school, high school, all different subject areas. And the presenter, they had different presenters come in. This presenter, older fella, just retired from teaching, taught for 30 years. So the best thing he did was kept like a shoebox or a cardboard box of all the letters and Christmas cards or whatever students had given him. And I thought, you know what, that's not a bad idea. I'm going to try that. So I did it, and maybe in the digital age, students are writing less letters these days, or little notes, or just signs of thank you. So when you're having bad days in teaching, or you can go back and look at those notes and go, I did make a difference here, or I did this right. I had this situation and managed to persevere and get through. I think having that evidence or physical evidence somewhere is handy. And again, you don't have to go crazy with organisation. Just have a little shoebox and put them in there. But you find over the years it starts to add up and it starts to sort of, I think it's easy for teachers, and I definitely do, for teachers to sort of look at the negatives or the worst case scenario, but it's nice to be reminded of the good stuff we do.
Absolutely. I think one of the best advices that bit of advice that I got from it was from actual principal who I rate most of the staff members that I've worked with. This principal was actually quite clever in the sense in the way that he handled all his staff. And what he simply said to all of us was, inside every single student, there is a gem. He referred to it as a gem, or there is a precious stone inside everyone, referring to the actual student himself. And he simply said, sometimes it's easy to uncover for some students, but sometimes it's harder to uncover for other students. Our job is to show the student how magnificent they are. Sometimes you have to just dig harder, and that's one bit of advice that I sort of, trying to show the kid their worth, trying to show the kid that they can do it. But sometimes you just have to peel back layer after layer after layer to get to that actual part where they go, oh yeah. So if I was to reflect on a student, there's a student that I've got currently who's just needs constant encouragement poured into him, and the more you pour encouragement into him, he tends to get a little bit more relaxed, the anxiety drops off, then all of a sudden his results are lifting and he's starting to see that, oh man, I can do this. So from being very agitated to everything's too hard to now going, oh, is this how it's done, sir? So he's at that questioning stage for reassurance. Now he's moving into and he'll say the answer when you have an open question to the whole class, and he'll say the answer and then go explain, and he'll explain it, and all of a sudden he's getting it, and you can see the stages from where he was to where he is now, and then where he can go to after that. So, yeah, just uncovering.
It's like a zone of tolerance, isn't it?
Yeah.
If they're out of their zone of tolerance, it's going to be overwhelm,
Yeah.
and they'll shut down. Never stop learning.
Mm.
I think society is changing at a rapid pace, and then teaching the classroom is usually a reflection of society changing,
Yep.
and especially with everything online and social media and stuff these days. I think keeping ourselves as teachers in the loop and keeping us relevant doesn't have to be official PD and stuff, but just reading stuff here and there to get across stuff, because it is, and I think it's definitely the last 5, 6, 7 years have accelerated growth for me because there's so much happening, and I just imagine the future is going to go quicker as well. So, I came into teaching in 2008, 2009, and they were just getting rid of blackboards and now whiteboards. But, it's just the evolution. Then it went to the desktops, and now it's, devices. It's getting faster and faster. So it's important to, especially for the longevity of teaching and your sanity as a teacher, to stay up to date with stuff.
I'm going to touch on that. Being relevant is such a big thing. Being current, what you're saying. But being teachable as well. Don't be closed-minded off the things that, when new technologies or new ways of doing things come in, don't shut off the idea straight away. Embrace the idea, have a look at the idea, pull it apart. If it works, go with it. If it doesn't, so example for me, teaching a specific topic of dividing fractions. One thing that I went through was I always went through this particular format. I added a new one this year, and it's a totally different way of doing it. And I just gave the students the choice, and I said either one will give you the same result, but you get to choose which one you want, which best suits you. And it's quite neat how some are sticking to the original one they got taught, keep, change, flip, and then some are choosing the zigzag formula, by where they're just multiplying on a diagonal and then putting it to the top. So it's neat how you've just got to stay relevant. You've got to stay teachable yourself, and be prepared to accept that there are other ways of doing things, and whatever works and gets the best results for the students. I think that's how you should go.
Yeah, and then I think, adding on to that, I think if you're not having wins in the classroom, you want to improve, get out and see other teachers that are doing stuff well. I mean, it's easy to sit there and talk about stuff, and even to put it, to put it in words sounds like you're doing it, but until you see what's working in action from other teachers, and it might be, teaching is such a personable thing that the skills some teachers have don't translate to you, but you can still modify those skills somehow to don't just give out and think don't just give up and think it's too hard. There's ways out there to get better. I think we should be constantly improving. And I think the best way to do that is observe other teachers.
I think on top of some of the other advice that we can sort of give out is just be mindful of every student as they enter the room. Is that read the room as they come in, and you can tell with the kids who are ready to learn and the ones who aren't. And the ones that aren't, sometimes even if it's one of those real good kids that really try their best, and you can tell that they're off. I think just as a side note for teachers, when you notice a kid not being 100, it's always good to check in on them and then say, look, I just noticed, and just give them the option, say, look, if you need time or whatever else. What that does, it just shows the student that, hey, we care about you, we care about what we're doing here, but at the end of the day, it's you that matter. So if you can show that, but it's one of those things where you've got to create that relationship though, by where the kids understand where you're coming from, because if you're just all about just push on academics, but don't form the relationship with the student don't really know if you're there for them or not.
Yes.
Whereas if you form that relationship and show that their best interest is them, that you're trying to do that in the class, then all of a sudden they will do more or try even harder to do it, whatever. So when they come across an something that's quite tough in their life, they'll go, oh, see, I'm not doing so well, and then just give them time, come back online, and all of a sudden they're back into the normal flow of things. So just, in my opinion, just read the room when students come in, because that's a good clear indicator as to where and how they're feeling.
Yep. I think set your boundaries early. I know one of my first mentors talked about not smiling to Easter, as in like the first term. But I don't know if that applies still, but definitely it's easier, I think, or more effective to set your boundaries early with students and be firm, and then let go a bit later on, than the other way around, coming in too not firm or too soft and then trying to toughen up or firm up down the track.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you still got to don't be a kid's friends, still be seen as the role model, but you can be friendly. But I think you got to set the tone first to start with, and that can be a hassle and that can be a fight, but the payoff's going to be later in the year. You train those students to know what to expect, and the longer you're at that school and you're consistent, it almost becomes second nature, and you don't need to keep doing it.
Absolutely. I think one of the best advice, even for me as a student when I was going through high school, but then I took it on board as a teaching point as well, is to ensure that my students' bookwork is of a high standard, so that when they've got their work, irrespective, they can go back through, because it's a working document in the sense that everything they learn in the class is written down, and if they keep their work and their notes in good order, by the time assessments come around, they reread over everything again, and then they get to see it again, and then they may have questions. But it's all there. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's one of those things that if you establish a good routine of how to rule up your book, of how to set your work out. I've got some kids whose legibility is terrible, so it's just trying to bring those kids back on. Why are your words flying off the line? Why is this all level? And then when you restructure them, and then all of a sudden they start seeing their work change, they take a bit more pride in their work. And then once they start to take a bit more pride, they want to show you, then you go around, check off and make sure everything is good. It's just teaching good habits. It's teaching them how to, one, look after their stuff, two, make sure that everything they do, they're doing it to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
And, you know, but also teaching the kids, if their books go missing for whatever reasons, that they can still come to you and say, oh, sir, I don't know where my book is, or whatever else. And it's just one of those things that, I don't know, for me it just helps. It helps in the classroom. It gives structure. It adds, everybody does the same thing no matter what. So if I have new students come in, I just say, I'll sit beside so and so. They'll either show you how we do our things in this room, and it's cool. It just creates that whole atmosphere of, this is how we want it done, this is how it's got to be done.
Yeah, the next bit for me is don't live and die by your to-do list. This wasn't given to me by a teacher, but I was just doing some research online. And I'm big into organisation. I think it makes my life easier knowing everything. But with that, you can go, you definitely can go a little bit crazy with it and overboard. I seem to have a weekly to-do list of stuff to do. But if you prioritise that and get the big things done well and the rest completed, it's going to be nearly impossible to get everything done all the time. And by doing that and setting that limit, it's going to drive you insane as well. So just have an outline. I have stuff you want to get done or you need to get done, want to get done, and then prioritise that list as well. Okay, and be reasonable on yourself. And hopefully the better you get, the more effective you get over time, that list starts to decrease as well. Or you're taking on more of the bigger tasks, which you can spend more time in.
Yeah.
So don't live and die by your to-do list.
Yep. I think a little bit of advice that I've also given and seen and do is I always have a structure on the board of how the lesson sort of pans out. Even if it's just a simple structure, so the students, when they come in, they can see, oh, this is what we're doing for the first 10, 15. This is what we're doing for the middle part of the session. This is what we're doing. And if I'm strict on it, I'll ask a timekeeper in my room. Usually it's a student who's got a watch, and just ask them, just keep me on time, make sure that we're up. And then they'll constantly be just watching, making sure that it is. But by having a structure on the board, it shows what the kids can see what's to expect next. Because one of the first questions that you get most often is, "Sir, what are we doing today?" And I never address that one student. I wait for the whole class to come in, just so that the whole classroom hears it at the same time. This is this is our goals for today, and this is our exit question. So I always go back over, like as what you're saying, we'll use that 10, 15. But in that time as well, I also go back over the last sessions, do our normal stuff, come to the end. I always have exit questions. So no matter what, before you leave my class, you're answering about 3, maybe 4 exit questions to get out of the class. And then that way it just reiterates what you've learnt in the classroom, so no one can just get away. Sometimes you might ask the whole class to answer or one person to answer. So that's one thing that I do.
You don't need to know everything. I think, especially when you're starting off in teaching, you feel like, obviously you got to know your content, but you don't need to know everything about the content. And I think teachers can stress out when they go into a more academically able class thinking they're showing up by the students. I mean, there's going to be times where probably the students maybe the top students in that class maybe do know something more than the teacher. Now, if that's happening on a consistent basis to most of the class, I mean, that's probably a red flag for the teacher. But there's going to be the odd time that, you know, kids are going to know, students are going to know more than you, and then don't let your pride get in the way. I mean, constantly keep doing your best to upskill yourself when you can. I mean, knowing your content's important, but don't think you have to know everything all the time. You know, there's going to be times where you just have to let the students, you know, almost teach you away or teach the others. If it's happening consistently, obviously work on it, but don't think you got to do it all the time.
Yeah. Making mistakes, i.e. writing something on the board and you may have spelt something incorrectly, that's all fine. And when the kid pulls you up on it, or the class, it's neat when they do. You can use it as a two-way thing. You can either use it as an opportunity to say, awesome, I was
live teaching moment,
checking to see if everybody was watching or not.
Yeah.
And obviously you were, so well done to you. Or you can actually own the fact that, yes, sometimes we're human and we make mistakes. So use those sorts of things as an opportunity either way, depending on how you're feeling. I think I wrote one letter out, or I wrote a different letter where it was meant to be, and the word was wrong. And the kids they looked at it, but then nobody wanted to say anything. But one kid had the courage, so I actually praised that one kid who actually said, "Oh, Sarah, is that meant to say that?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, well done."
I told you, I talked about it in a previous episode, I was doing a problem-solving activity with the lower school class a couple of years back. And it was about truanting, and then how back in the day in Australia, your parents got fined for truanting.
Yeah.
I had spelt truant 4 different ways on the whiteboard. Like, seriously, you think after, 12 years of school and university and stuff, I spelled truant. There's only one student's like, "Sir, how do you spell it?" I'm like, "It's on the whiteboard." And they're like, "It's 4 different ways on the whiteboard." And I was like, "Mate, I should not be a role model for spelling, I'll tell you that much." I think, look after yourself first. Teaching is a very caring profession, a very people-oriented profession, so that can get a lot of emotional overwhelm and stuff. So look after yourself first. Be care of your well-being. Try balance work and life activities. And you're not going to get in your optimal range to start with. It's going to be an ongoing thing, but you need to be able to balance your personal life with your work commitments or teaching commitments. So we've got time for one more each.
I'm going to go on that too. I made it a rule, I don't know how many years ago it was, but to not take any of the burden of work back home. So that is, I watched this guy, he would touch the tree outside his house, but the imagination was that he would leave the work day on that tree, and when he enters the house, it's like he's revitalized, put all his energy back into his family. Then come the next day, he'll go back, and then it's like he's automatically picked up where he left off from yesterday, go to work or go to school and continue on and just chip away at what you're doing. So my thing is just, protect your balance of your lifestyle. Your family, if it was to come from my point of view, your family is your biggest thing to think about, and where you are now. Your job is but your family will always is something that's you have to prioritize. And I would always say to a lot of young staff out there who are having families and so forth, that you do put your families first. That's just coming from my perspective, because at the end of the day, you will never get that time back in the sense. So when you do come home, put all your effort into your family. Pick your work life back up the next day. Go 100% at it. Do the best you can. Then when you come home, back into your family. And that's the part that I think is got to find that balance. Yeah,
my last one is get to know the greater school community. I think teaching can be isolating at times, and you're stuck in departments, or you don't have a department, you're stuck in your own classroom. If you can just get out and talk to one person, or get out at recess and lunch for a couple of minutes, or whatever it happens to be. I think the more people you interact with gives you more support network, which is important in teaching.
Absolutely.
So final remarks.
All I'm going to say is just enjoy and learn. Be teachable. Don't close off anything. Accept and receive from people who want to sow into you, in the sense that they may add value to what you're doing and to your craft. And learn from those who you might think, "Oh, I won't do that," but there's still teaching in it of how. So you probably would say to yourself, "Oh, I won't do it like this," but that's still you're still learning how to fine-tune the craft of teaching. And at the end of the day, as long as you put the student at the center and you're focused on trying to move that needle inside the student from this point to that point, and everybody's working towards the same goal. That's what you need to look at as young staff coming through, or any teachers that are coming through, even the older student staff members who are been in the game for a while. Still, it's also good to resharpen and refocus.
Yeah, so I'll go devil's advocate here as well. Look, people with advice, people like to see themselves as, they know everything, or like I'm the wise being. And sometimes people are that. My experience is a lot of people just want to be seen as they know something. So just when you get an advice from people, just take it as a grain of salt as well. I mean, check what they're like in the classroom and their credibility and stuff. But don't think that everyone knows everything, or that you don't know anything. When you start out in your career, I mean, you're a blank slate and it will come, but it's not all advice is good advice, but some advice is good advice.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, like always, we thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.